Greetings, all praise the King. Welcome to Eyewitness, an eye with an eye, an unscripted source where we reason to discover truth, supporting the struggle for international justice. Today's topic of conversation is on oppositional staging, which we have covered. We'll call this staging ops, just a variation of the term, to provide some examples of what oppositional staging is, what it's doing. So staging is a fake. It's a presentation of a scenario that's not real. It's been orchestrated. Someone coordinated the presentation as to be received by an audience in a particular way. So they're looking to affect the perception of others, based on the visions, the visuals, or the images that people see. And they like for others to believe, that there's a kind of opposition at play. You see? So what they really would like for others to think is that there's a balance. See, others have realized for a long time that there's people that rule over them. And those are the people with the so-called power and the wealth. And at the same time, these people convince others to keep trying to get yourself to that level. Try to build your wealth to the point where you have that kind of status. So it becomes like a lifelong goal of most people on the earth. You see, seeing that they're trying to chase after this money all day and all night, they like to think that there's a fair chance that they might be able to achieve what it is that they're working for. So that's why there's a need for a perception of a balance. That things will never get out of hand, because there's an opposite side, and they're gonna make sure that this side over here doesn't do anything too bad, And know something, that this is global. This is not central. Just say the USA or wherever you might be. As long as you're in a Western civilization, and we're only speaking from that perspective because we don't have enough experience with the Eastern civilizations to make this call. But in the Western civilization, this is what you'll see. Now, it's possible this thing could be happening, in Major League Baseball. But we're mostly concerned with how it's happening on a political level. How those so-called leaders are staging, themselves against each other. Now, remember, these leaders are supposed to be, representing the populations, yeah? So, if they find some faces, as we like to say, feces, that people relate to, then they can move the group. The people think, oh yeah, there's a balance. This person is working for my best interest because this person looks like me and they sound like me, right? They got the same hairstyle. You know what I'm saying? They might even be into fishing. So they find the feces that people are gonna relate with to move people. Yeah. Now they got an idea of what people are thinking. Obviously, they're tapping into those devices. They know what people's is at. So if you take an issue like abortion, you could probably know what side of that issue most people are on with today's technology. So now you can set up the stage to make pretend that there's a feast that represents your belief when it comes to this issue. Now, what you need to do is look at it from a scientific view. Scientifically, this is nonsense because of the results. The results are that every single state in the United States of America permits abortion. Now you can say, oh yeah, Texas is saying something. But realistically, if you live in Texas and you want an abortion, you can get one. Now, you got to wonder why these people claim to be so against abortion, right? When they also brand themselves as being supremacists and opposed to any other cultures. I say that because it's really not the skin color. You know, there's plenty of these people that love, you know, that Uncle Tom cracking, cracker kissing, raccoon, you know? They love those people because them are the people that will not only do what they ask them to do, but they may influence others to do the same. So it's not really a racist thing like they make you think it is. It has to do with heritage, and it has to do with without using the word, you know, power, privilege. It has to do with privilege. You know, there's certain individuals, when they do the research, when they look at the history, they realize that people look like them, perhaps even their ancestors, whatever, had conquered over some of these other civilizations, and so they like for it to remain that way. But people just do accept that, and those civilizations could look like anything. As a matter of fact, they do, because you don't just have, you know, what they call the African Americans. You also have the Mexicans and the Asians and all these other people that are really underprivileged. You know. So to get the results that they're looking for, you know, they got to play that game. They got to make pretend that they're opposed to something so they can get the group to follow them, and then they can move people by, you know, passing through various legislation. Now, most people don't realize what it is that's being passed through. This is an important to mention because, you know, what most people know is what they see, and what they see is what they're shown, and what they're shown is through the media, industrial, communication complex. You know, the communication industrial complex is owned. It's owned. All television channels, most of the stuff on the internet, radio, magazines, newspapers, you name it. It's owned. You get it? It's owned. Somebody actually has an interest in what it is that they're saying and that people are hearing or seeing. And as a result, believing. You know, it affects their perception. So once you realize that all the media, right, is owned, then you know that there's something in there that's meant to influence the way that you think. So basically, the staged opposition can get with the media industrial complex and produce the article to show that, oh yeah, they're really trying to hold back on providing abortions or having abortions. You know what I'm saying? Now you've got to know something. Every single state in the USA functions as its own nation. You know, when you have something on the United States Constitution, that says you have a right, like for example the speedy trial, but the state turns around and says no, we're going to suspend that. Guess what? The USA is not for real. So you got the states that are really running the show. Those are the nations that we live in. You know, when they first came out with the USA, it was because there was designated states, you know, up mostly in the northeast area. And those were the colonies. And each one functions kind of on its own terms. And they decided, because they were probably getting ready to incorporate more states, that it would be better off if they could have a kind of oversight committee to look into what these states, how these states were operating, so that they didn't abuse their powers and the people turned against them. Now that's huge. You know, most everything that that these fakes have done is to result in increasing their control over the populations, in fear that the populations may uprise against them. Now these are the puppet heads, we know, right? They're only reading from the script, but the ones that are giving them the command, yeah, are afraid of this uprising. They have been for so long. So they develop this so-called military to counter this. This is why the military exists. This is when you have a situation like in Eastern Europe, where the country's being invaded and everyone, they don't want to even talk about what's happening in Burma, you know, with a genocide. But now they're going to speak about this invasion of the blonde, blue-eyed peoples, you know, which are beautiful people. You know what I'm saying? But you know, they speak enough about racism, but now they're going to lend so much attention to this one country, which probably has less people than the other countries, which have also been invaded, and peoples have been slaughtered in far greater numbers. Just look at Syria. How do you think that more people will die in Ukraine than Syria? So it's only what they show you, you know, that affects the perception of how, you know, obviously how people think. And you can show people an issue in a certain light and say, you know, we're putting a clamp down on this. It's whatever the media industrial complex says. It doesn't really matter to most people what actually is being done, what legislation is actually being passed. And most people really could not interpret this legislation or any legislation, probably because we don't have enough time, you know? So they work on these things and they make them so complex that most people just don't get it. They won't get it. And the media industrial complex is supposed to be the one that's supposed to explain it to you. Alright? So, like today, you got the issue with the BLTG. Now, they saying they like to teach the kids about this. And the so-called state is saying, no, we won't allow this. So they realize they got a population that's opposed to what's happening. And they said, we're going to step in and rep the group. Rep the group to increase the relations. So people trust us and think that there's a balance. You know what I'm saying? So they come out with a bill. They come out with a bill which says that the kids K through 3rd grade are not able to learn what it is that they've got, this curriculum. Now, what is it that they're teaching? Like, the media industrial doesn't tell us what it even is. They just say, oh yeah, there's gonna be a teaching about this and that. They get someone with dark skin who says, oh, they're opposed to this bill. They're opposed to this bill. You know, how could they, you know, be treating these kindergartners like they treated us? You feel me? As if us has anything to do with this. You got to know, this is something that didn't happen in the past. The humans never trained their kids to change their sex when they're in 3rd grade, or even in high school or college. This is just not a thing. Not a thing. Now it's a thing. But here's the trick. The trick is, the kids are going to be learning about it in 4th grade. Now the kids, when they're in kindergarten, they don't exactly process the information the same way they do when they become teenagers. So, from something like this, which is totally confusing, is not going to resonate with a 3rd grader. Now, once the kids get into 5th grade, the so-called state says now, as long as it's under state guidelines, see, they're going to use that language to make people think, oh yeah, they got it under check. Really what they doing is enforcing this curriculum on 5th graders. That's what they doing. When the media makes it appear as if they're opposed to it, you look at the result is the curriculum's going to be there where it wasn't there before. You know, I got to get a little bit heated about this, because it's like, who is paying attention? What is really going on? You got the situation we spoke about with abortion. They say it's blocked by the Roe versus Wade case. Remember, again, this is also a U.S. Supreme Court case. It is not, the states are not incumbent on this case to act. That's not what they've done with other things. The Supreme Court said you can have a jury for every case exceeding $20. Try to tell that to a judge from one of these so-called states. We may have missed something. Basically, private companies are running that thing they call the government. $5 trillion is printed up. These people are tight-lipped about it. When they always complaining about how waste is a factor, when this is the most amount of money ever been packaged and distributed, they don't have anything to say about it. You see what I'm saying? So once the prices go up, and you know they have, the quality of products is going way down, they can blame the other side. And they continue to play back and forth, because it gets the results that they're looking for.